Welcome to the Fabulous 50s and Beyond. Our program today is one that I'm sure you'll be interested in. It's about diabetes, and we have two very competent people here today to talk about it. So you stay tuned and we'll go look at it thoroughly.
And he'd say, go with what you got. Start from where you are. Give it your best shot. Keep reaching for that star. Get in the race, keep your own pace, keep moving and never stop. Just go, go with what you got.
Our guests today are Sophia Chandler, and she's a certified diabetes educator and president of the Purchase Area Diabetes Connection. Also Judith Watson, who is also a diabetes educator with the Purchase District Health Department. When I talk about PAD, now our daughter used to work for PAD, so I get PAD and Purchase Area Health Department all mixed up, and I really can get that confused a lot. But today we're glad to have you ladies with us because we want to talk about a very important subject, and it's one of diabetes. We talked about my brother-in-law earlier in the program. He's always trying to make me a diabetic. Every time we have a get-together, he wants to check my blood, you know, because he's got his with him all the time. But tell us what you do as an organization in the Purchase Area.
Okay. The Purchase Area Diabetes Connection is a group of interested people. It can be lay people or professional people. We meet once a month, and our goal is to raise the standards of care for people with education or with people with diabetes. And a lot of that has to do with educating not only the person with diabetes, but also the medical community that helps the person with diabetes to manage their diabetes.
So you actually work with medical personnel also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that detecting diabetes is a simple thing if you have the test, I guess, isn't it? I don't know. I'm asking a question.
Yes.
But it's something that can get to be a very serious problem, can it?
Definitely, if a person does not keep their blood sugar under control.
I know that, again, I'll have to be referring back and forth to my brother-in-law a lot because some of the situations that we've seen him get into, like when he's working on his car or something, all of a sudden his sugar dropped, I guess, and he almost passed out. Mm-hmm. And had to rush him to the hospital and things like that. What are some of the statistics, both national and local, that we look at?
In the United States, they estimate that almost 21 million people have diabetes. And the bad thing about that is that a third of those people don't know that they have it. So when you don't know that you don't have it, then you can't do anything about it. And a lot of times, people with type 2 diabetes have had their diabetes for 10 years before they actually get diagnosed. So during that period of time, when they're not controlled, that high blood sugar is adding to problems that they will have later on in life. And uncontrolled diabetes is a major factor in diabetic retinopathy, and cardiovascular disease and stroke, damage to the kidney, damage to the nerves, and that's why we see, and also the circulation, and that's why we see a large number of people who have had diabetes over a long period of time that's not controlled end up with amputations of their lower extremities. So nationally, it's an ever-growing problem, and in Kentucky, they estimate that 1 out of 10 adults have diabetes, and we have a growing adult population. We are not known for our physical activity, and our diets sometimes are very Southern in their traditions, and so we eat too much, we don't get enough activity, and we also have people who've had diabetes in their families a long time. So it's an ever-growing problem both in Kentucky and nationally.
And Southern means sugar, doesn't it?
And it means fried. Sugar is
foods.
not always the culprit, it's fried foods.
Oh, that's worse than the sugar?
It can be.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
What actually is diabetes? Either one of you can
Well,
answer.
what diabetes is, Jeanette, is where the body is unable to utilize the food you eat, especially the carbohydrate foods. In order for our body to have the appropriate amount of energy for just daily activities like moving or anything, you have to have a source of energy for that. And we get that primarily from the carbohydrate foods like potatoes, beans, breads, your sugars, rice, different foods like that. And what happens is, normally for somebody without diabetes, when we eat food, our food digests and it changes to sugar. Through the process of breaking down, it changes to sugar.
Right.
And then in order for our body cells, like our muscle cells and our fat cells, in order for those parts of our body to utilize that sugar, insulin must be present. So usually when the blood sugar goes up, then our bodies release a small amount of insulin to help lower the blood sugar. And if everything's in check, as you eat, the body releases appropriate amount of insulin and your blood sugars stay in a good range.
Right.
Like a normal blood sugar level is between 70 to 110. But when someone has diabetes when they eat, then their body doesn't release enough sugar. So the end result is their blood sugars are high.
And that can lead, it can lead to a coma if it's not.
Yes, if the blood
taken.
sugars get
Right.
too high, occasionally we'll see somebody that their blood sugars will become extremely high, be over 1,000.
Over 1,000?
Yeah,
I had a-
1,500.
I had a niece who, they found out she had it when she was a child. And, she was just didn't have any energy and,
Right.
and all this. And when they
She lost
finally,
a lot of weight.
when they took her, her sugar was so high, they said if she had gone into a coma, she would never have come out of it.
Right. And what had happened at that time, that was when she was diagnosed?
Yes.
What had happened, her body was breaking down her fat tissue, trying to get stored sugar, because you must have a source of energy for your cells to function, your brain, and your nerves. And so she couldn't utilize the sugar that was in her bloodstream because her body wasn't making enough insulin.
There is quite a bit of childhood diabetes, isn't it? Or is it?
Well,
Maybe I should ask that
when we
question.
think of diabetes, we think of three different types. There's type 1, which we see mainly in children, although we do see some adults with it. Type 2 is the kind of diabetes that we associate more with adults.
Right.
And then we have people who have gestational diabetes. And these are women who've never ever been diagnosed with diabetes, but during the course of their pregnancy, they develop diabetes, okay? And usually after they have the baby, it goes away. But out of the diabetes population, only 5 or 10% have the type 1 diabetes, and 90% have type 2. So type 2 is what we see most of, but we're seeing more and more of both kinds of diabetes, and especially type 2 diabetes in our adolescent population, because they are not active like the adults. They're eating too much, and I don't know if you've read about any of the school initiatives where they're trying to get the junk food out of the school and
Yes.
trying to reintroduce physical activity or PE, just because we know that the children, when they're not active and they become overweight, they are at a very high risk for diabetes. So it's becoming just a major problem all the way around.
Seems like that, I just thought of this analogy that we kind of aimed a double-barrel shotgun at our children, because at about the same time they took out the physical education, they put in the junk food machines, didn't they?
Right.
And it was like hitting them with a double dose of something that wasn't good for them.
And then I think a couple of years they stopped busing some of the children to school, and the parents were up in arms, but then they found that wasn't such a bad thing, because at least they were getting that much exercise
to
walking
school.
to school, so.
I was reading in a magazine somewhere where the neighborhood had organized, and different parents would walk the kids to school every day, and they were saying how good that was. You know, we when we were young, we got out, we ran, we played tag, played hide and go seek, and we didn't have the TV and the computer games and the internet. And it's very sad that this is what they do most of their time.
And it's really taking its toll.
That's what I understand, that the computer, just the kids playing on the computers all the time is really taking a toll on the health of them. And of course, I know we sit at the computer, and not only are we sitting there, but we're usually stuffing something in our mouth a lot of the times too. And usually it's something that's not good for us, you know, some kind of snack or something that we're eating, and it's not good as we do that. We've kind of briefly touched on it, I think, but who is at risk for diabetes today?
Actually, anyone is at risk for diabetes, especially for individuals that have family members, like their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and actually cousins too. Those people are especially at risk for diabetes, and really anyone over the age of 45 is at risk for diabetes. If they're inactive, anybody, even if they're under the age 45, if they're inactive, not eating properly, all that puts a person at risk. So we ask those individuals to watch their weight, make sure they get exercise. We can't stress that enough today, that a person needs to exercise, watch the type of foods they eat, and make sure they get routine checkups from their physician, and ask what their blood sugar levels are.
Now, I want to touch on those blood sugar levels again. You mentioned them again a while ago. What's the range that's, shall we say, good?
70 to 100.
70 to 110.
110
is what a normal blood sugar should be.
Okay, and because I know mine a lot of times runs 100 or
Okay.
just a little over 100.
But like for somebody who has ate a meal 2 hours after you eat, your blood sugar should be less than 140. And then if your blood sugar, say fasting, mean you wake up, you haven't had anything to eat or drink except maybe some water for 8 or 10 hours, if your blood sugar is like 101 to 125, that can be considered pre-diabetes. And so you want to keep a check on your blood sugar. And then if your blood sugar is greater than 126 on 2 different occasions, that's considered diabetes. And then also they do a glucose tolerance test.
I had that once.
Okay.
They're no fun.
No.
They're no fun, where you drink, it's sort of like drinking a sweet cola.
Yeah.
And they test your blood sugar 2 hours after, they check your blood sugar at the beginning, and they check it every hour. And at the end of the test, if the blood sugar is greater than 200, you're diagnosed as having diabetes.
Well, I've been big all my life, so I was always a good guinea pig for whatever test they wanted to run. Listen, we got to take a break here for just a minute and have an announcement, and then we'll be back. And this is going great, and we're looking forward to the second night. So we'll be right back.
And he'd say, go with what you got. Start from where you are. Give it your best shot. Keep reaching for that star. Get in the race. Keep your own pace. Keep moving and never stop. Just go. Go with what you got.
We didn't have much to give them. So when they showed up, firing them mean looks around the place and staring us down on prices, well, I was angry. Didn't seem to bother my father, though. He had me load another bushel of apples in their trunk. I learned later on that this family was in need.
The greatest gift we give, it's in our heart, what we believe, the way we live.
Caring for others. Pass it on.
Welcome back. We're talking with Judith and Sophia about diabetes. And one thing I'd like to ask you is, what are some of the signs and the symptoms of diabetes? So, so we can know whether or not we're, might be on the verge of.
Some of the signs and symptoms is being thirsty, constantly thirsty, can't get enough to drink, being hungry all the time, unexplained weight loss or unexplained weight gain. Sometimes a person has blurred vision. They might have tingling or numbness in their fingertips or in their toes. Some people have dry, itchy skin. And occasionally, well, not occasionally, some people have slow healing cuts. Those are primarily the main signs and symptoms of diabetes.
I know that diabetes, if you hurt yourself, it just can be a really bad thing. And
Right.
when my brother-in-law that Jim talks about, having diabetes, when he had his open heart surgery, the worst thing he had was healing his legs where they took the veins out of him. He had a real problem with that. But I was so shocked when they called me and told me that Mickey was going to have open heart surgery. Because if anybody in our family was healthy, it was him. He
Or was
had
living healthy.
Right.
Had good
Well,
healthy
that's
habits.
true.
Well,
Right.
it might have caught up with him sooner if he had not been living healthy.
But he ate fruits and vegetables, and he walked, and he exercised all the time, and I just, I was just totally shocked. See, I didn't realize that this is a symptom. I mean, it's something that diabetes brings on is your heart, isn't it?
Right.
Right. It's not just that you're not healthy, but it's
Right. Now, a few more symptoms is reoccurring. Women might have problems with reoccurring vaginal infections. Some people, men or women, might have bladder infections and also have problems with their gums, reoccurring skin infections and gum infections. They can also have.
And there are, it's surprising, but there are a number of people who go into the hospital for some surgery or something, and the doctor says, "Did you know you had diabetes?" Because some of these symptoms that Sophia described are some of the symptoms that you just think, well, I have to accept this. I'm getting older. I'm tired all the time, and I don't feel like doing anything. So sometimes people will say they didn't really have any symptoms, and so when the doctor says, "Well, you have diabetes," it's like, you must have got my chart mixed up with somebody else.
we wish.
Yeah.
My doctor told me a story. It's not about diabetes, but about getting older and symptoms and things like that. One time he said, we were discussing how sometimes I don't have the energy I used to have. And he said, he had this lady in his office one day, and she was sitting down. She was 92 years old. And he asked her to stand up for something. She says, and she had to give it 2 or 3 times before she got up. She said, "See there, just like an old person." She was 92 years old. But but that's good that we don't think we're old.
Yes.
I think
yes.
we need to think young and act young until our bodies tell us to slow down.
Right.
I tell everybody my body reminds me of my age sometimes, But what are some of the tests? We've discussed this kind of off the air too, that are used to diagnose this. You were talking about the
Glucose tolerance test.
and that's, like you say, that's
a 2-hour.
That's a real test. I had that one once, and but then what are some of the others that they use?
To diagnose, well, they do
The blood stick, the stick.
the
is-
stick,
or from your arm.
From
They would
your arm,
take
do
it.
that arm. Right, and they also do a hemoglobin A1C
Once you
test
have it.
once you have it to help monitor it.
Oh, okay. But I guess the simple one, the one that everybody talks about, is the stick, isn't it?
Right.
And when any of the organizations offer screenings for diabetes, that's a perfect way for someone to take advantage of finding out, for free whether or not.
And there are a lot of these offered a lot of times.
Yes.
I know.
Yes, it is throughout the community.
We'll be talking about the Senior Olympics game, and they always Mary Callaway Hospital always has some nurses there, and that's one of the tests that they give.
Right.
Is the screening test there, and people need to take advantage of that, don't they? Everywhere they go, and then they won't get blindsided when they go in for something else, right?
Right.
Is early detection very important? I'm going to ask a dumb question. you
It
know.
is so important because if you don't know that you have diabetes, then you'll just go on your merry way and you won't do anything about it. And it's that not doing anything about it that leaves you exposed for all those problems that we talked about earlier. Because, you know, we say diabetes contributes to heart disease, kidney disease, but it's really, we need to put an adjective in there, uncontrolled diabetes leads to all of those complications. But we know with controlling diabetes that we can prevent or delay those complications. And so an important part of controlling diabetes is getting the person to buy into education about their diabetes, because that's what helps them to control it. And there are so many organizations that offer a series of classes that can help people in that area.
So basically, it's uncurable, but you can stop
It's
it dead in
controlling.
its tracks.
It's controllable.
So, well, that's good to know, because, I mean, some diseases you can't control. But
No, and some of them are a downhill slide too, but
And one of the things that we haven't talked about is how it affects your eyesight. Now, I had an aunt who went blind and a cousin who went blind. Now, this was years ago, and I don't think they even knew that much about diabetes, you know. And then I had another cousin who went blind later on. So it can really affect your eyesight, can it?
Yes, it can. You know, when I provide diabetes classes, I always try to get people to think your blood vessels. You know, your blood vessels have access to the sugar at all times. So when it's elevated, over time, it causes damage, structural damage to your blood vessels. And like for your eyes, it causes damage where over a period, it's not something that happens today or tomorrow, but over a period of years, if the blood sugars are not kept under control, then it causes damage. And then all of a sudden you have blood leaking. They form little mini aneurysms and they start leaking blood, and then they can cause blindness. I know my mother, when she was alive, she was working, and just one day she said that she felt like someone had pulled a curtain down over her right eye. So it can it's not that it gives you forewarning, it can just cause, it can just happen. And so that's the reason why we tell people to keep up with what's going on with their kidneys, what's going on with their heart, because a lot of times they say, well, I feel good, I feel fine. But actually, if those blood sugars are not under control, it's causing damage. So with the vision, getting back to the vision problem, we encourage people to go and get their eyes checked. Even if they're not having any problems, they want to go to the doctor, let them tell them that those blood vessels look good, because they dilate their eyes and check to see what's going on. And if they're having a problem of leaking or a potential problem, then they can do laser surgery to help with the problem.
So anyone, I think over 50, should have their eyes examined
Sure.
at least
well,
once a year?
when you have type 2 diabetes, they recommend that you go right away and get a dilated eye exam, because you don't know how long you've had it. If you have type 1 diabetes and you're not going through puberty, then you can wait 5 years, because when somebody gets type 1 diabetes, we know when it started. And so they can wait a little bit longer.
I had a retina problem last year. It wasn't from diabetes, but they said it could have been an injury, it could have been anything. And boy, they did all those tests on me, and that was one of the things that they checked. Though they did the dye injection to make sure that I was getting the circulation in my eye. It was a whole new realm of testing for me to go into that eye doctor and have them do all that. Then they actually did surgery on my eye. But and he is a great macular doctor. I understand, retina doctor here that does it. But it was it was
and
kind of
some of the things that Sophie was describing, like the changes within the eye, if those changes aren't near the optic nerve or the macula, you wouldn't have a clue that was going on.
Really?
I mean, someone could have 20/20 vision and have all that damage going on, and that's why a dilated eye exam is so very important.
So it really doesn't mess with the vision until it goes?
It depends on where it is.
Depends on the location.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what happens is when those little blood vessels burst and bleed, they form scar tissue. And if you've ever had a scar, you notice it pulls on your skin. Well, it pulls on the back of the eye, pulls the retina away from the back of the eye.
Well, now time is getting away from us, and we've all discussed off camera something that we really need to talk about, and it's pre-diabetes. What does it mean?
Well, pre-diabetes is kind of a new term for diabetes, and what they found was that if they could get in there and help people to change the way they live their lives, have a more healthy lifestyle, that they could actually prevent or delay the onset of type 2 diabetes. So what they've done is they've lowered the diagnostic categories for diabetes, and so people who have a fasting over 100, then we say that's an alert, and it's below 125, you're pretty well headed towards diabetes if you don't change your ways. And so they did a lot of clinical trials, and they found that if they could get people to be more physically active and watch what they eat, lose 10 or 15 pounds, we're not asking for people to lose a lot of weight, that we can actually keep people from getting diabetes.
Well, ladies, we appreciate you being here today. This has been very informative. Now, for more information, I'm just going to give them the Purchase District Health Department's number.
Okay.
Is that the best one?
That's sure.
That's 444-9625. 444-9625. And I'm sure these ladies will be glad to give you any information that you need. And you have meetings once a month.
Right.
And you can tell them where the meetings are and what goes on in the meetings. But this has been very informative today for me, and I'm sure for our audience. And we appreciate you being here. And have you back sometime. We talk about some other things about diabetes. But it's important that we do the pre-testing and the pre-research and things like that. And so
start living healthy lives.
start living healthy.
Right.
Don't look at me when you say that. She knows how I love to eat, but we want to encourage you to watch our show every week, and we're going to be giving you information that we believe will be informative and healthy and helpful to you. And remember that our mantra is use it or lose it, and that's very important today, as we talked about earlier, not only with your mind but with your body. So use it or lose it. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Can't see as well as I used to. Can't run as far or as fast. Sometimes I think that the old me is becoming exactly that. But when I start thinking of all I don't have, that's when I tell poor me Beethoven was 50 and deaf as a post when he wrote his Ninth Symphony.